I'd like to now introduce our final speaker for this morning's session. I'd like to welcome Tim Hartman Senior to the lectern. Tim is a Ngarrindjeri and Boandik man and Chief Executive Officer of the Ngarrindjeri Aboriginal Corporation. Tim's been active in the government and private sectors and Ngarrindjeri Community Organisations for more than 30 years. Welcome, Tim. Do you need this? Brilliant.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to acknowledge, we're on Ngarrindjeri Ruwe, our lands and waters. Pay respects to our elders, past and present, and our emerging leaders. The conversation I want to have about today is about the significant work our community's been undertaking over the last few years, particularly around the Healthy Coorong, Healthy Basin. So one of our major drivers was, how do we take our community on the journey and understand the changes and the challenges that are facing throughout the millennium droughts, the flood events, and the participation and I suppose activation we can participate in regards to being part of the solutions and the decision making. So one of the key things we was able to do as part of the Healthy Coorong, Healthy Basin project was a Ngarrindjeri research project. And historically, Ngarrindjeri have always been researched, and we wanted to change that methodology significantly. And instead of having people coming in to do the research on us, we wanted to take the driver's seat. And so we sort of flipped the model in regards to that to make sure that it is our community who are the ones who are providing the leadership in this space, and that we're the ones who are shaping what we want to investigate and the... Sorry. Oh, gone wrong way. Oh.
Sensitive click.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay. So I'll just sort of... So it was about strengthening our community in regards to the relationships, formation of the Ngarrindjeri working group, being able to input into all the different types of investigations and on-ground works, being able to run things like on-country cultural competency workshops. We had the research project, cultural heritage surveys, strengthening the relationships and partnerships between not only Ngarrindjeri but other First Nation groups, particularly First Nations of the southeast. Being able to develop and refine our Yallarooey assessment tool, and being able to reach out and engage with as many of our own community as we could, so that they're able to be part of the conversation and have the ability to have informed consent in regards to the type of decisions that we're making. As well as having the opportunity and building the capacity to be able to co-design things, particularly around some of the wetland management plannings, particularly for Tinningi wetland. So it was really about looking at Ngarrindjeri philosophies, knowledge, and being able to bring intergenerational, oral histories and knowledge into a room where we can actually start to unpack that. And this is actually really crucial because I was just reflecting the other day. I was at a funeral and I was talking to one of our elders, and we've had something like 22 funerals in the last 19 weeks. Now, apart from that being a sort of a challenging and a devastating thing for our community, but what it does is reinforce that our elders are getting older. Knowledge is being lost over an accelerated rate, and unless we're actually having sort of things in place where we're actually engaging with our community, listening, capturing their oral histories, and having a framework where we can actually start to store and manage and archive our cultural knowledge, our information that's through living generations, and be able to use that to inform what we want to do in the future. So I just wanted to say, when we think about these types of things, it's so significant because it gives us the opportunity and the resources to undertake that type of significant work. So previously, like I just said, research has normally been driven from an academic sort of arena or by government and so forth, whereas we wanted to flip that model around and say, no, this needs to be a Ngarrindjeri-led process. We want our community to start to identify the research questions and have our own methodology on how we want to do it. And so through our Ngarrindjeri research project, we was able to undertake and engage with over 44 community members, in some cases, 3 generations of family, and start to capture the very significant stories and oral histories that they know and about the Coorong, the lakes, country, and to be able to get that sort of knowledge into our database, which is one of the other sort of outcomes of this, was creating I suppose the IT support to be able to capture, store and manage the knowledge and information that we're sort of capturing is going to be instrumental for how Ngarrindjeri want to have a conversation with how systems are managed going forward and the type of planning and management actions that are going to be implemented. So the main areas for this particular project was, the nori, freshwater soaps, kumari, which is, the Coorong mullet. We sort of had to pick sort of 3 sort of items. They were selected prior to me coming on board with the Ngarrindjeri Aboriginal Corporation. But what it meant is, well, the nori is a key Ngarrindjeri or totem species. In our language, if you don't know the word, it translates as our special friend. So when we talk about a Ngarrindjeri, what we're talking about is a significant species which is important to particular family groups, and that particular Ngarrindjeri, we have a responsibility, whether it's a pelican or another Ngarrindjeri, around making sure that they've got a healthy environment, it's got their food webs in place, that Ngarrindjeri people can still, protect them, look after them, and that they're going to be there for tens of thousands of years and, future generations. Freshwater soaks was interesting because prior to colonisation, the utilisation of freshwater throughout, the coastal environment, particularly freshwater soaks, was about how we was able to, use the landscape, go and camp on country, undertake our traditional cultural practices like hunting, gathering, living, going to locations to be able to do cultural business, tell stories, and have that ability to have ongoing cultural connection to what is part of our traditional lands and waters. And we chose kumari or the Coorong mullet. Again, it's a Ngarrindjeri, but was and still is one of our significant food sources, as well as something that is iconic to the Coorong, the Coorong mullet. And to give you a sort of, we've got a bit of a quote here. This one was from Owen Love Jr. Just reinforcing about, our community needs more projects like this. It gives us, our people are engaged to talk about our Ruwe, have our voices heard. I'd love to see more projects like this done in the future, focusing on other Ngarrindjeris and sharing our stories about Ruwe. So, this is our community, being very clear and voicing that research is not something that should just be done in universities. It should not just be done in governments. That we want to have an active role and be an active participant in how this sort of happens across something which is so significant to us. Because if you look at realistically, First Nations holistically around Australia, and Ngarrindjeri in particular, we've been managing country sustainably for tens of thousands of years. And it's only through, the influence of, colonisation and man that we've got a system that is now sort of in decline, and we're all trying to come up with solutions in partnership on how to better manage it into the future. So one of the key things we developed was our Ngarrindjeri assessment tool. And this was, I suppose, an assessment tool where it was developed by us, and it's an ongoing refinement process, but it's a tool that we're able to use where we can get community out on country at specific locations, which is looking at, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities in these spaces, and we can actually capture some of that data, which means if there is a particular management plan or a management action that is going to be undertaken at that location, we've got the information we want to be able to have an informed conversation in the co-design on whatever we're trying to achieve at that. Whether it's a wetland plan, whether it's putting some infrastructure in, or some terrestrial activities like revegetation, etc. So the assessment tool utilises Ngarrindjeri cultural values, information, knowledge, and it means that we're there and we're part of the solutions and having that conversation. So it's actually been a quite useful tool, and they're out there using it today. Literally, they're down at a wetland around Rauken, around bulrushes and wetland ecology. So these are the sort of benefits that have been coming out of the things we've developed in the research project. By being Ngarrindjeri led and driven, it meant that our community members felt safe to share, because historically, when information had been shared with museums or institutions, sometimes that information has been used out of context or been used inappropriately as well. And by us being the drivers of it, our elders and our community felt comfortable to be able to open up in a safe environment and know that the information they're sharing will be used in the right way. Just as importantly as well, I said we had like 44 community members who participated in the project. But in the last sort of 4 weeks of the project, we're sort of getting around May of last year, we're still getting community members ringing us saying, how can I be involved? Now, if that's not a testament that, we're doing a process which is, truly engaging and welcoming and a safe place, how many researchers would still like people going, can I still come and have a yarn with you? Can I still come and have what I want to say? And I think that's just another really good indicator of how it was embraced in regards to the methodology of this project. But what's research without, I suppose, what do you do with it? So some of the key applications that we've actually taken from this research project in being able to implement it in real world stuff we're doing now, and some of the key things have been things like yarning circles around community engagement. So we're doing so many different projects at the moment, it sort of boggles the mind a little bit. So obviously, the main one throughout this one was the Healthy Coorong, Healthy Basin. But coming out of this and through the methodologies we developed, the processes around Ngarrindjeri Ruwe assessments, the method around community engagement, our community was saying, well, how can we do more? Throughout the oral histories around the three topics we selected, Noris, Soaks and Cymru, there were other species that were identified that were culturally significant, and Narchis and so forth. And they were things like, in the previous one, you thukabi, turtles, yabbies, other species of fish, kungaris, swans, and lots more. So what that meant was, we was able then to start to look at what are our other partners doing. So, we've got partnerships with 3 landscape boards. We're just delving into conversations with Kangaroo Island as well. We've developed, relationships as well with Sadi, other sort of branches of DEW. We're doing stuff with the Chuo, Murray-Darling and Basin Authority, just to name a few. But even into other types of areas, Department of Infrastructure and Transport, just to name a few of them. So it meant that we could take something that was theoretical, a process where we'd undertaken over a 12 to 18 month period, and we were able to sort of translate that learnings into things that we're currently doing. So to give an example, last financial year, we had over 100 community members participate in remunerated work, contract work with our organisation, specifically around Ngarrindjeri assessments, yarning circles, cultural heritage management, flood projects, just to name a few. Language, we had Kyla here earlier today, having the opportunity to incorporate Ngarrindjeri language into all of our documentation, our partners' documentation. It really starts to elevate that there is an acknowledgement that Ngarrindjeri need to be part of the decision making, the design phase, and the implementation. And so getting that built throughout all the different levels of it is to me another significant win throughout this whole research project. So I've sort of touched on some of these things, but some of the other benefits of the Healthy Coorong, Healthy Basin and the research project has been our relationship with the First Peoples of the Southeast. In my introduction, I'm Boandik as well as Ngarrindjeri, so that's my father's country, so I've already got family down there, so it was pretty easy to go and have a conversation. But what it means as well is we start to get that connectivity across an even broader landscape in regards to what we're trying to achieve. So Ngarrindjeri values are not dissimilar to other First Nations. You have the nuances which are specific to your nation group, but we're able to start to get a broader breadth of understanding and collaboration happening as well. So some of the things that we're currently doing and we'll be doing very shortly into the future. So in regards to some of the infrastructure projects that will come out of the Healthy Coorong, Healthy Basin will be, as I said, getting Ngarrindjeri information implemented and incorporated into the designs of signage, talking about our values, our principles, language being utilised, all the data that we're collecting is going to become part of our long-term archive of information. So throughout all these sort of projects, so it started off with the research one, but the landscape boards, other agencies, all of this data is going to start to be incorporated into our database. And what it means is when we sit down and have a conversation, we'll have such a breadth of information that we can actually elevate the conversation we have and make sure that we're incorporating our community's needs, wants and aspirations into whatever project we're participating in at the time. We're doing a significant film at the moment, which was around thukabis, the turtles. So again, community-led, community voices being heard and being able to sort of put that, and that's sort of part of like the Million Turtle project that we're sort of partnering into as well. We've been undertaking Ngarrindjeri cultural inductions and cultural heritage inductions to contractors and staff. So not only are we sort of working and building relationships at a strategic level with leadership within agencies or organisations, but we're actually building them relationships at an operational level. So, if you're a project staff, field officer, these types of levels, we're out there, I suppose, building the relationships and building the capacity of them staff. So in the performance of their role and function, they're actually got a greater appreciation of Ngarrindjeri values and interests into their day-to-day work. But the key around all of this, for me and for our community is the future generations. And, one of our community members, Shirley Hartman, sort of summarised it up here. It was a wonderful opportunity to share her knowledge and cultural understanding of the importance of the Coorong. The project has given me the opportunity to have this information recorded for her grandchildren. And that goes back to my previous comment around, we lose so much knowledge through the passing of our elders. We lose information throughout a lot of them sorry business. So by having, I'd have to say, hundreds of community participate with us as the Ngarrindjeri Aboriginal Corporation over the last few years, not only on the Healthy Coorong, Healthy Basin project, the research project, but throughout all the breadth of the things we're doing. It's given us the ability to start to capture that very important oral histories, narratives, and to have it there for future generations. Because unless we can understand the past, understand the significance of what our knowledge and information is, understand the cultural content and context, then we risk losing it. And that's been a significant win for our organisation and our community by being able to have the resources within these types of projects allocated and valued, that we can actually undertake that. And you can sort of read, and I've pretty well covered off on a lot of this. But at the end of the day, what this means is we have a process. We actively want to build and strengthen relationships. We want to have true partnerships. We want to have it in a stage where we're actually co-designing things. We want to be able to work with our community and walk with them, so that when we have a conversation around management actions that might be proposed around how we're going to have long-term projects or management actions to reduce salinity in the Coorong, that they understand it. Two, that leads to informed prior consent around that we're going to agree to whatever it is. But at the same time, that their voice is clearly heard and they're actually having a part of the decision making. And by memory, I think the weighting of First Nations decision making throughout the Healthy Coorong, Healthy Basin project is weighted at about 20% by memory. And that's significant, because what it does is it shows respect, it shows that you value our participation, and that you want us at the table to be able to have decisions equally with everybody else. And that's it.